working lawyers for working people.
Local news, local topics, local conversation. You're listening to AM Beaver County on 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA. Presented by St. Barnabas and streaming live at beavercountyradio.com.
And we're back on this Wednesday morning edition of AM Beaver County, and we're now also on Facebook Live as well, as I'm joined in studio by Kate Lowery. Kate, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you.
So for those who may not be aware of who you are, give us a brief introduction to what it is that you do and who you are.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm the Single County Authority Administrator for Beaver County Behavioral Health. And what that means is that in each of the 67 counties across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there's a single county authority program, which is the recipient of federal and state block grant funding. And we're tasked with the responsibility of setting up a full continuum of care for persons with substance use disorders. So Beaver County Behavioral Health is the recipient of funding through the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programming in Harrisburg. And my responsibility is to establish a network of care through contracts with providers, public speaking engagements, evaluating trends of drug use in the county, doing needs assessments, etc. So we wear a lot of hats, and we have a case management unit on site in the behavioral health unit down in the Human Services building, and we also provide full level of care assessments and evaluations for anybody who may be in need of services for substance use disorder.
Now, on a regular basis, how often do you get clients? How often does the county deal with people who are dealing with substance abuse issues?
So in any given year, we evaluate up to about 600 people coming through our doors to do a level of care assessment and to provide the linkage to treatment, and then also the funding. We have funding for people who are uninsured and underinsured. So it's a very busy, very dynamic department that we have within the Human Services building. And throughout COVID, we did not stop. We didn't miss a beat. Our case managers, we all kind of transferred to a telehealth platform, and those numbers continued even throughout the pandemic, and they're picking up even more so now.
Why do you think that is?
I think the isolation of COVID, I think we're starting to see now some of the outcomes of that isolation, that even though I think the behavioral health field especially did a remarkable job in a very short period of time of converting to a telehealth platform. A lot of the work of recovery from substance use disorder especially involves that connection to those natural supports in the recovery community, 12-step programs, faith-based organizations, the sponsorship of people helping one another. And although the telehealth platform allowed for more people to engage in services, I do think we're seeing now that one of the byproducts of COVID was people really did miss out on that face-to-face physical connection. So we are seeing we're seeing more mental health needs and absolutely more substance use disorder. And frankly, now that life is up and running again, there's more accessibility and availability to drugs of use. That maybe one of the benefits to COVID was it was a little more difficult to access. Even in the very beginning, the state stores were going to close, access to alcohol, and was more difficult.
Yeah, and again, it changed a lot of avenues, not just in the ways to deal with isolation, but also in the ways to deal with connection. Because like you said, even though telehealth did provide that avenue of, being accessible from pretty much anywhere, it was an access to something that wasn't quite the same. And that's what led to, maybe a different type of disconnect that maybe these people who are struggling hadn't dealt with before. But you mentioned all the different organizations that Beaver County Behavioral Health Services works with as far as, rehabilitation, whether it be faith-based or based in other parameters. How many different organizations do you guys work with, and how much of a network is it as far as working with one another and making sure the right thing happens?
Wow, that's a good question, and I'm not sure that I have an exact answer, but I know just our contracts alone with service providers for drug and alcohol treatment, we probably have 20 or so service providers just for treatment, and then that doesn't consider the ancillary supports like prevention, recovery supports, housing supports, such as the cornerstone of Beaver County, Trails Ministries, the Prevention Network, Keystone Wellness. So I would say for drug and alcohol alone, we're probably engaged with at least 45 plus other sister agencies. And our Beaver County System of Care website is a wonderful, wonderful hub of all of those resources. If anybody would have any behavioral health needs, we try to house all of that in an organized way so that people can access. Because oftentimes, in addition to the treatment, what's really important are those non-treatment supports, such as food, shelter, clothing, transportation. So those are things that we also try to connect people with to support their recovery, whether it's substance use disorder or mental health.
So if anybody is, interested in getting those services or providing somebody with those services, they know someone who's dealing with substance abuse, where can they find out more information? How can they get a hold of you?
So my number directly is the administrative number is 724-847-6225, and you can call and ask for me, Kate Lowery, with any questions that people would have about accessing services, especially for substance use disorder. For anybody who would need any type of a behavioral health evaluation, 724-847-6220. And then you can also go online and look at the Beaver County Behavioral Health website or the Beaver County System of Care website, which is more broad.
Yes, and we'll have links to those coming up later on this morning in the follow-up post at beavercountyradio.com. One question I'll ask you before we get to break, Kate. What is the line drawn? Because I know some other organizations, when it comes to things such as, dealing with disease or dealing with some sort of, mental level of issue, they may go to see a therapist, they may go to see someone and say, I think I may have this, only to find out, that they don't quite have it, that they're sort of at a level that's, not quite there. Where is the line when it comes to substance abuse, and where is the level of, if they're not at a certain level, how do you help them at the level that they're at?
That's a great question. So our assessment tool is an evidence-based standard tool that we use across the nation. And it has 6 dimensions that help to evaluate how far the progression of disease is. So the first step is to have a case manager. Our case managers have specialty training in substance use disorder evaluation. They go through rigorous training to be able to perform those evaluations. And so it can be anywhere from we need an intervention, which means a person is not ready yet for treatment, but they're starting to maybe have some substance use, signs of substance use disorder. And generally those are school-age children. When they come in early for some type of a policy violation. And we can work with the schools and with the prevention teams to do some education and information. We're getting ready to engage the services of a program that will provide coaching to families who have loved ones who are starting down the path of use and potential dependence. And then anything from outpatient treatment all the way to hospital-based residential services, that all can be determined through our level of care assessments in our office. And then the case manager can help the family to navigate the system of care, how to access those services, and the funding that goes with that. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We're talking with Kate Lowery from Beaver County Behavioral Health Services. And there's one particular aspect of what it is that you guys are doing that I want to get to. We'll get to that after the break here on AM Beaver County.
95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com, invite you to tune in to Sounds of Faith. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 for a mix of the best sacred music of all time. Sounds of Faith is brought to you by Crawford Tire and Beaver, the William Murphy Funeral Home, City Rescue Mission, MRS Physical Therapy, Circle of Friends, J&J Spratt Funeral Home, and Rome Monument and Inspirational Gifts. Sounds of Faith, uplifting, relaxing, and inspiring radio. Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Dr. Mehmet Oz confessed, quote, "I'm not socially conservative." Mehmet Oz is a liberal on guns. Listen to him in his own words.
How do we keep guns out of the wrong person's hands? Red flag laws.
Even worse, Oz supported New Zealand-style forced government gun buybacks, tracking gun owners with universal licensing, and an assault rifle ban. No wonder Mehmet Oz confessed, quote, "I'm not socially conservative." Mehmet Oz, a Hollywood liberal and total fraud. Dave McCormick, he's an Iraq combat veteran with a Bronze Star. He's a proud son of Pennsylvania and a sportsman. Dave McCormick is a conservative who you can trust to stand up to the woke liberal mob and protect your Second Amendment rights. Honor Pennsylvania, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Paid for by Honor Pennsylvania, Inc. HonorPennsylvania.com.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
And we're back on AM Beaver County on 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA. Also on Facebook Live at the moment, as we're talking with Kate Lowery from Beaver County Behavioral Health Services. And Kate, one thing I did want to talk to you about, and I sort of tease it going into the break, one program in Beaver County, and particularly in Beaver Falls, that has come up in the recent years, which is the Magistrate Diversion Program. What is that?
So what that is, it was a direct response to the increase in opioid overdose and death that we started to see as a county in general, but specifically in the community of Beaver Falls back around 2016. That was the year in Beaver County we lost the most lives to accidental overdose, primarily involving opioids. We lost 102 souls in Beaver County, Beaver County residents. So at that time, we were noticing, especially here in our community of Beaver Falls, that a lot of people were having public overdoses that were resulting in it obviously was a risk to the individual, but also a disruption to the city and to the community. And it was at that point that then Magistrate William Livingston and Beaver Falls Police Chief John DeLuca came to our office and said, what can we do to partner as a community to help the people who are having very poor outcomes in the community, but also to reestablish safety and security in our community, because there were so many residual effects from the public overdose crisis that we had. So at that point, what we decided was that for anybody who was having a drug-related event in the community of a lesser degree in terms of a criminal justice charge, so public intoxication, maybe disorderly conduct, but the event is directly related to their substance use, and there's no prior history or no other crime in commission at the time, that instead of arresting them, we would, the magistrate would charge them, and I'm not a criminal justice person, so I hope I'm not speaking out of term here, but I think it was with a summary offense, like a lower level offense, and file that charge. But then if the person agreed to enter a very rigorous rehabilitation program through our office, and it's two prongs. The first phase is 90 days of evaluation by our case managers, and then we form a multidisciplinary team of housing supports, OVR, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and we make treatment recommendations for that individual, and we follow them throughout those 90 days. And then the second phase is a 60-day follow-up after they've completed their course of treatment. They continue to work a recovery program and meet with our team regularly. If they're demonstrating that they're substance-free and they're moving toward the goals of their treatment program, at the final 150 days, the magistrate would waive those charges and the person would graduate from the program. So I think the community of Beaver Falls has a lot to be very proud of because they took the lead in the county with this program. Now New Swickley Township has a model as well. And we worked in those early days with Hopewell and Aliquippa, and they have various levels of the same type of a program. So applying more of a recovery approach to people who are in need as opposed to sanctioning them with harsh criminal justice consequences that maybe would interrupt that potential for recovery.
And what I like about that system too is while it does establish that, yes, it may be better to apply help to those dealing with substance abuse issues as opposed to, a harsh penalty right out of the gate, especially if there was no prior history. It also creates this idea of, okay, we're willing to help you out and we're willing to, help you deal with your substance abuse, but you only get off the hook if you improve over the course of our training program. I love that because it does incorporate, forgiveness with personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
So, and like you said, it is now sort of spread to other communities in the area and throughout most of the county.
That's correct. And and you're right. I mean, it's not an easy program. And we had people who would opt in. It's completely voluntary. So you could either face the charges or you could choose this program and potentially have the charges removed. But we had people who would opt out midway through because it was very rigorous. And we did place clear expectations on individuals for their health and well-being. So you're right. I think it very well married the two components of behavioral health and criminal justice in a very responsible way. And we really, we've moved a lot of people toward recovery through that program, and we've really strengthened our relationship with law enforcement as well. It really helped to bridge those relationships and strengthen them even more across the county to the point where now the district attorney has a very similar model in the Court of Common Pleas at the county level. So it's been a win-win for everybody, I think.
And on top of that, it talks about, the marriage of responsibility and forgiveness. It also provides that perspective to those parties involved, because it's not just those dealing with, substance abuse that are dealing with, the transformation of who they are as a person from what they were to what they want to be. But it also provides that idea that, these components, whether it be the district attorney or the police forces in these townships and these cities, they look at it a different way too, because it's not just a matter of, oh, they're on drugs, let's lock them away. Now they're starting to learn, hey, this is becoming a real issue. Maybe we should go this avenue instead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our individuals are sick people who need to get well. They're not bad people needing to get good, if that makes sense. I mean,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so I think to apply the compassion and the recovery model and also hold them accountable to responsibilities of that behavior.
And I think that's a brilliant way to put it all together. It's that mix of, compassion with responsibility, the sort of, tough love mixed with, and that's what it is. It's tough love, but it's still love. It's compassion. It's understanding, and empathizing with them to be like, listen, we know what you're struggling through, but, it's going to be up to you ultimately to get out on the other side. I think that's where Beaver County Behavioral Health Services has done very, very well. Kate, I thank you so much for coming in today to talk about this because, again, the things that the services are doing, it's good for those who are struggling and good for those who are dealing with someone who is struggling, and it's a good thing for, redefining what it means to help somebody, particularly here in Beaver County.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and you're welcome back anytime here on AM Beaver County.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's Kate Lowery from Beaver County Behavioral Health Services. Again, if you missed the interview, we'll have a link to the video later on, along with links to the services website at beavercountyradio.com. Coming up here on a Wednesday morning on Beaver County Radio, it is Teleform, and Tom Young from First Consultants joins Eddie Crow in hour number 1 here on Beaver County Radio, beavercountyradio.com, and streaming live on the app.
Make plans to be a part of a